Are you looking to get on the road to your dream career? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Mentor Select Podcast with your host, Derek Phillips. Always stay up to date on social media at Mentor Select and online at mentorselect.com. Here's your host of the Mentor Select Podcast, Derek Phillips.
Welcome to episode 53 of the Mentor Select Podcast. I'm so happy that this week is a special episode because we actually have a video interview version of this podcast. So if you want to check that out, it's on my Derek Phillips channel. So head on over to YouTube after you listen to the podcast, and you can get the full experience by actually seeing our guest mentor live and in person, in the flesh. So I hope you all enjoy this interview, and be sure to like, subscribe, share the podcast. So I'm just going to jump right in. Let's get to the interview. How are you, Robin?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm proud of myself that hopefully I pronounced your name right.
Yes, you did. You did awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. So, Robin, I invited you on the show today just because I had the opportunity to read your book, From Pieces to Peace.
Yeah.
And it was very inspirational. And you talked a lot about just adversity that you had to overcome during your childhood and also as an adult. And many of our viewers are enduring, they're growing up either in poverty or just enduring a lot of adversity. So I want to get your insight on how you were able to go from pieces to peace.
Absolutely. I'm glad to do it.
Great. So we'll dive right in and talking about your first book.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about the inspiration behind that book, just how you got started, and then just what really gave you the courage to share those stories, because you're very transparent in your book.
Yeah.
Just tell us just that journey.
So primarily the inspiration behind my book was just I had gone through so many things in my life, and although I had healed from a lot of them, I knew that there were so many people who needed my story because I was consistently giving out advice to other people regarding the different things that I had gone through, be it neglect, be it molestation, be it alcohol abuse, be it domestic violence. It was just so many different things that I was consistently helping other people with in their life, just from, them calling me up, asking for advice, or me seeing somebody and they just needing encouragement, encouraging them in that way. And while I was still dealing with the shame of my story, just, in fear of, do I really need to put all this out there? I knew that was really why I needed to put it out there, because I felt like there was so many people who needed to hear that story, because it would empower them to overcome their circumstances. And there were so many people who could share in that same story. So that journey was one that was, it started off, it was scary. I will say it was a scary journey because I was not sure that there would be a lot of people who would grab hold on to the story or would admittedly relate. However, I knew that it was a call that the Lord had on my life, that I had to put the story out there.
Wow, definitely. And it's a remarkable story. Glad you did share it. And yeah, that the motivation for doing it is ultimately you want to help other people who are going through it. That's the driving force. There's a great purpose behind it.
Yes.
So once I finished your book, or as I was reading it, I was wondering what has the reception been to your book, especially from like family and friends, because you reveal all.
Yes, it is. One thing I would say is this book is not for the faint at heart. However, it's for somebody who's willing to be real with themselves and the people around them. So the reception was, it was various different responses and reactions to the book. Of course, you have your close people and friends who are very supportive and they want to cheer you on.
Right.
And you have your people who are not really aware of your full story. They just see who you are now. And they're like, oh my God, I just want to hug you. I can't believe you went through all that stuff. And then you have the group of people who are your Me Too people. Oh my God, I went through that too. You're like, oh my God, I didn't know that you endured so much. I endured that too. I thought I was the only one. And then you have the people who are still healing, which I didn't think about that when I was writing that. I knew that I was writing my story, right? But I didn't know that I was writing I didn't consider the fact that I was writing pieces of other people's story. And so I was actually bringing about old hurts of other people that I didn't know. So their reception immediately was not very warm.
Okay.
I will say that it was kind of, some people felt blindsided. They felt personally attacked. And they just weren't warmed up to it. But after they took the time to realize, hey, I actually need to deal with this and I need to heal, a lot of them came back and thanked me for it. And some of them are still walking out the healing process. So overall, it's been good reception. And I'm just grateful to God that he's covered me in the process. So.
Wow, it's very cool. And I see now that you've written a second book in the series.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about that?
So I can't tell you about the second book without kind of clarifying the first book really quick.
Yeah.
So the first book is From Pieces to Peace, Damaged Goods. And so the point of Damaged Goods is to expose a lot of the traumas and I'll say taboo things that we don't talk about in our communities today that a lot of us deal with and suffer in silence. And so I basically took the gloves off and I just got raw and transparent in this book. I didn't sugarcoat anything. And there's not a lot of warm and fuzzies in this book. I don't talk a lot of, even though it's from pieces to piece, I don't really talk about, there's probably like 2 peaceful moments in this first book. So to segue into the second book is From Pieces to Peace, Forgiving the Unforgivable. And it talks about how I went through my healing journey of forgiving all of those things that I went through in Damaged Goods. So that's where the peace comes in book 2.
Love it. Yeah, certainly forgiveness is integral to any growth and healing.
Yeah.
It's something a lot of us struggle with. Most people struggle with some form of forgiveness.
Absolutely. I'm actually learning. I'm learning as I am teaching for a forgiveness course or challenge that unforgiveness is attached to so many places in our lives that we don't even think about. It's just attached to just about every emotion every negative emotion that we ultimately experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, Robin, where did you grow up?
So I originally grew up in the good old town of Toledo, Ohio. For those of you who don't know, that's in Northwest Ohio. So, yeah, grew up there in the middle city of Toledo, Ohio. So pretty interesting upbringings there. So, yeah.
Cool. So I'm well familiar with Toledo. My wife's from there.
Awesome. We know each other pretty well.
Yeah, some good people come out of Toledo.
I would agree.
Definitely. So it was ironic. My wife, she had read your book, I believe it was maybe like last summer, and she had told me how much she enjoyed it. But I'll be honest, I had a stereotype. Like, I don't want to read a romance novel or because I'm more into like self-help books or whatever. So I kind of put it, I thought it was like a romance novel or whatever.
Yeah.
But she's like, nah, it's really good. Whatever. And then she put you and I in contact after my book got released. I'm like, let me go ahead and check out her book. And from the very first page, I was just gripped into it, and I read it nonstop, read it all the way through. It was just like, wow, on the edge of my seat. So he did an excellent job of just, like I said, just being transparent and just covering so many issues that many people deal with.
Yeah.
Or like,
Thank you
as far as
so much.
suffering in silence. Yeah, I was really impressed. He did a really good job on that book. Now, could you give like the viewers a kind of just an overview of what your childhood was like? What was some of those hardships that you had to overcome? Just give me a little snippet of some things you cover in the book.
Wow. Okay. So
I know that's not that easy. Just you can pick one or two areas.
It's fine. So growing up, I had to overcome a lot of different obstacles. I didn't really think about it as much until actually I started writing the book and realizing all the different layers that I had to peel back and heal from. But I had to overcome molestation at a young age. It started off as molestation when I was about, I'd say about 5 years old, to sexual abuse from a close sibling, I'll say. I had to overcome that. I also had to overcome some sense of neglect, I guess. Not necessarily, it wasn't hardcore like child neglect, but I felt a sense of neglect. I'll say that. So I spent a little time in foster care. Um, I also dealt with bullying with close relatives as well. Growing up, single mother home, raising ourselves pretty much. So, I mean, you name it, we pretty much dealt with it growing up in our home. So, yeah. I can definitely relate to a lot of the young kids that are struggling here today with a lot of things that they have going on today. So
Definitely. And what would you say are some of the things that help you get through those hardships to overcome them?
believe it or not, writing. I've been writing and reading since I was little. My dad cracks me up when he tells me about some of the letters and notes that I used to write him. And I don't even really 100% remember, but writing was my release. It was my release. I would write stories, I would write poems. That was my escape. But I love to read. I love to bury myself in a book and bury myself in somebody else's life to escape my own when I was younger. That was just my thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up too, as far as I'm big on like having faith and just using your imagination, and just you can mentally escape no matter what your circumstances are.
Yeah.
So you can escape, and it's a powerful resource to get through a lot of hardships.
Absolutely.
Now, growing up, did you have a desire to be an author?
No, the funny thing is, I I didn't even see it as a gift. It was just like something that I thought everybody did. I didn't see myself set apart. It was just like, this is what we do. Like we were born to do this. And so I didn't start thinking about writing until I had a friend. She used to say, "Girl, your life is so crazy. You need to write a book." And I'm like, I don't know if I want to publish that. That's just a little bit too much to publish. And so I didn't start considering it seriously until I'll say about 13 to 15 years ago. But I would always say, I'll write when I get my happy ending. Well, we all are old enough to know, like, there's always going to be things that come up. So if you wait till you're happy ending, you're never going to write the book. So yeah,
Right.
it wasn't something I grew up desiring, but it's been several years coming.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. So how long did it take you to write your first book?
Well, the first book, it took me a total of a year to get it published, a total year, like almost 365 days to the date. But that's primarily because I was not writing avidly. I would like have days where I would just like write all day, and then I would just not write for like a month or a couple of weeks. So it wasn't until so I started writing in April, and then it wasn't until September. It wasn't until that September that I decided, okay, I actually hired an editor, and I was like, okay, she's like, you need to be serious about this. This book should have been published by now if you've been writing this long. And so she said, you need to get she calls it a writer's paradise. She said, you need to get in your writer's paradise once a day, every day, and write. And so that's what I began to do. And by the end of the year, by December, I think maybe December 30th, around that time, I was finished writing. And so as a self-publisher, I was figuring the publishing process out. And so I was trying to figure that out and all of that. But by April 11th is when I published my first book. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I can relate to about a year as well, but I'll say about 4 months of actually working on it continuously.
Yep, it's about the same.
Taking breaks in between. Now, you also have a journal as well, right?
Yes, sir, I do. I have a journal, and it's called Freedom Through Forgiveness. It's a 15-day interactive prayer journal and devotional. It is phenomenal. And I'm really not just saying that because I'm biased. But the funny thing is, when I wrote it, I had wrote it from a healed place, and I actually wrote it from the perspective of forgiving the unforgivable. But it's funny how the Lord works, right? So I set up this 15-day challenge to introduce the book and, kind of allow people to work through the book and also, challenge themselves in the area of forgiveness. But it's funny how he will challenge you in that same area that he has you trying to speak to other people. So we're on day 13, and I'm actually going through the journal as if I didn't even write it. And it is very impactful. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Awesome. You have the trifecta.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That is great. So how does it feel knowing that you're helping so many people, especially those people who have been suffering in silence, who felt that they were alone and were only one had gone through such just adversity? How does that feel?
Oh my God. It's an overwhelming amount of joy that overcomes me. It does my heart so good because I feel like that's what I was made to do. That was what I was purposed to do. Like, I'm not looking for financial gain. It's just a matter of helping other people and serving my fellow man, because at the end of the day, all the other stuff will come, right? It's just,
Right.
I'm supposed to be serving my brothers and sisters, period. Like, that's what I'm supposed to do. If I see you suffering in an area and I just overlook it when I know that I can help you or support you, I'm doing you and me a disservice because I'm being disobedient and you're suffering. It's just not fair. So it just makes me feel so good. It does. That's just one of my intrinsic factors. So it's helping others.
I can totally relate. It's priceless. You can't put a price on that. Like you said, the more people you help, the financial gain comes from that, just as a result. But your driving force is serving people.
Yeah.
And the more people you serve, there's value to that, and they're going to see value in it and buy your books and everything else. But it's priceless. Now, and I think that's what's so important about people sharing their story, no matter how painful it is, just to help other people get through that.
Yeah.
People who are currently going through it, or people who haven't gone through it yet, but it could prepare them for it. Just because if we only show the good, only talk about the positive, then it's like a facade. We're creating that social media facade, like everything great and perfect, but people don't really relate to that as much because it's not real life.
Right.
So when you share your pain and your struggles, that's what people relate to. And that's when you get the, hey, me too.
Right.
It just opens up so many things.
Yeah, I was going to say too, like, to your point, I think being relatable is a form of authentic leadership. Like, if you're not relatable, I mean, what good are you to the common people? Like,
Yeah.
So I love the fact that people can relate to me and I can relate to them. And it's not a matter of me always saying me too, but it's a matter of me being able to empathize with you and let you know, like, I've been there and you can overcome this. You can get from where you are to over there, because I know, because I've been there, not because I'm just telling you something because I just want to read something to you that I read in the Bible, or, something that I've learned. It's because I know it to be true because I've walked through it. So,
yeah, it's not just theory.
Right.
Not at all. So you had mentioned earlier about being raised by a single mother. Did you have a relationship with your father growing up?
I did. I had a relationship with my father. He lived in Michigan, though. So there were times when I saw him more often than not. It just really depended on what we had going on or what my parents had going on. Most times I spent the summers with him, or when he would come in town for the holidays, I would spend holidays with him. And so we had a pretty decent relationship. I did resent my father just for not being there. I think it's maybe something that a lot of daughters may go through. But, I still loved him no matter what. So.
Awesome. And is your relationship, I guess, stronger now with your father, or it's kind of the same?
Absolutely. My relationship with both of my parents is solid. It's very solid. So
you're able to put that forgiveness into practice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's beautiful, because I know a lot of people, they may have had rough childhoods or just bad relationships with their parents growing up, but it's always, as long as they're still alive, it's always an opportunity to restore, rebuild those relationships.
Yeah.
That's something that I recently experienced with my father. I had that same resentment, even though we lived in the same city. He was never in my life. And it was just recent where I actually just called him out of the blue.
Yeah.
Decided to, hey, it's not too late. I can rebuild that relationship. So
yeah. I was so excited when I read that.
I'm excited about it. Actually, I plan on having lunch or dinner with him when I go home in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome.
Let you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Definitely. So in addition to your books and journal, I guess, how else are you helping people who are going through just tough times in life?
So I am one of those people. I'm a lot different than I used to be. I used to consider myself an introvert, right? Don't talk to me, don't touch me. That was me, but I'm more open. I'm more of an outreach type of person now. And I try to give people the love and attention that I wish that I had when I was going through things. Because at the end of the day, I was just hurting, right? And hurt people. And at the end of the day, hurt people need people. And so I try to be the person that I needed to people when they need someone. So other than, being there and outreach in the physical form, when I see somebody who may be suffering or who I even suspect may be suffering in silence, I also, encourage people online on a daily basis, reach out to them. And this challenge is just the beginning of something, hopefully that will be much greater, that will spread like wildfire and allow other people to, get forgiveness in their hearts. And hopefully, as I help other people, they will help other people, and it'll be a chain reaction. So.
Yeah, love it. Paying it forward, certainly. And what's great about that is just people who feel that they are alone and no one loves them or cares. They have to realize it's complete strangers who've never met them, who really love them, care for them, and want to see them succeed. Yeah. So people like yourself, it's just encouraging, definitely. And even with social media, just acknowledging someone, spreading positivity, we just don't know the impact that has.
Yeah, I agree.
So, same way with negativity. If you spread negativity on social media, it's having a negative impact. You just don't know who it's touching. So definitely spread that positivity. Certainly. Definitely. Now, what's next for you? Is a movie, or what's next on your to-do list?
I don't know. I actually when I did my first book, I had like all these things that I thought that I wanted to do. Then I started to think about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to let it flow. However it flows, I'm focused on the people. So whatever that means, I know that sounds a little arbitrary or you think, but it's just kind of, I'm just going to let it flow. The way that my life is set up, I will say my husband's in the military, so it's really hard to make plans like far out in advance. So as opportunities come, I just hop at the opportunity to impact somebody's life. So
definitely, I completely relate to that, because like you say, the people will let you know that, hey, you should write a book. They'll keep coming to you, asking for advice, and just gave you that indication, like, all right, this is what I should do, and it's going to continue that way as long as you're following in your calling. Yes, you're going the right path. Certainly. Now, going back to your book, you overcame a lot of things I know a lot of women struggle with, especially kind of focusing on like abusive relationships, for example. Mm-hmm. What advice do you give to women who are currently in abusive relationships?
That's a tough one. And I only say that because domestic violence is a beast, and it comes in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. So what I do want to say is, if you are in an abusive relationships, know that you are loved. Loved, and I'm not talking about the kind of love that you think that you may be experiencing, but just know that you are loved. And self-love is most important. That's number two. You have to really know who you are in order to even realize what your self-worth is. And then number three, don't be afraid to reach out to your family and friends, because sometimes I think out of fear of judgment, we reach out to our family and friend. I mean, we are fearful of reaching out to our family and friends, or due to the narcissistic behavior of the abuser, they've already ruined those relationships. But know that if you reach out to your friends and family, they're still going to be there, because 9 times out of 10, they already know that you're in this abusive relationship. So I would say lean on your support system. If you don't think you have one, I'm sure you do. Reach out to somebody. I mean, just don't do it alone in silence. That's just number one. That's the worst thing you can do, is think you have it under control. It's almost like a drug addict who thinks they have it under control and they really don't, and then they overdose. Like, don't think you can do it alone, because I know that you can't. You can't do it by yourself. So.
Right. Yeah. You make a really good point. I know that's a common strategy for abusers, where they want to sever those relationships. So make you feel just that you're alone. So that's really part of their strategy. But yeah, really good advice. Women know that they're not alone, certainly.
Yeah.
And after reading your book, it gave, from a man's perspective, it certainly gave me a greater perspective on just the psyche of women who are being abused. And it's just not clear, black and white. On the outside looking in, people can think, "Oh, why don't you just leave?"
But that's what they all say.
More to it than that. But
that is what they all say.
Seems so easy.
Believe it or not, I was one who said it like maybe 2 years before I ended up in the same shoes. So
right.
Yeah.
Goes to show you, don't judge people, because you may end up in the same shoes, and it's a lot easier when you're not in that situation to say what someone should or shouldn't do.
Right.
Indeed. And in your case, just giving a little more preview with the book, it's so good. But yeah, many times you tried to leave, and it wasn't that easy.
It was not. It was not. It was difficult. I'll just say that without being a spoiler.
Yeah, they got to buy the book to get the details. Yeah, difficult is a major understatement.
Yeah.
But having gone through all of that, and now that you definitely seem very happy and you're married, and it's just what's that been like as far as experiencing such abuse, and now you're with someone that you love and happy, and I'm sure someone that loves and appreciates you?
It took time. It took time, because honestly, after going through so much trauma, I didn't just go through abuse. I didn't just go through molestation. I went through several different types of traumatic experiences that I never took the time to heal from, because I just didn't know how. And so it really took time for me to get where I am. And I really think it's a continual journey. I believe that. But, I got there. And I'm grateful that I have a patient husband, because, in the beginning, some of those triggers were still there, and my husband is the gentlest person I've ever met, but it was just some of those triggers that had me looking like, hold up, just like little stuff, just because I'm conditioned to the abuse. I'm conditioned to what I had been to through so many years ago. And so I had to now learn how to function in a marriage, because I didn't know how to function in a healthy relationship or a healthy marriage. And so now it just, the joy that comes with, before I say that, I'll say it took for me to heal from it, and it took for me to completely forgive. Completely forgiving all of the people and forgiving the unforgivable is what it took for me to get to this place that I am in. And it's a joy and it's a peace that I can't put a price on. I can't really explain it. It's so overwhelming. I was just explaining it to my group the other day. It's just like, I just want to give it away. I just want to share it with everybody. I just want to love on everybody and just let them know, like, hey, you can have this too. Like, you don't have to live that life of that downtrodden life of anger and hurt and bitterness. Like, you can come up out of that and just be joyful all the time. So, yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful. Very happy for you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's the greatest gift we can give ourselves is that forgiveness and letting go of those toxic emotions and channeling them into an area that's going to serve us versus that resentment and hatred.
Yeah.
It doesn't serve us at all. It's counterproductive. So that's awesome. So, Robin, you've given us a lot of great advice throughout this interview and given some insight into your world and your wonderful books.
Thank you.
So as we get ready to close out this interview, what would be some closing words of advice you would give to the viewers, especially those who are growing up in just hardships that you had to overcome?
I would say if you're going through any of the hardships that I've had to overcome, the same advice that I gave to the young woman going through domestic violence, don't suffer in silence. Speak up. Find somebody that you trust to talk to about what you're going through and talk to it. I know depression is a major thing going on among our younger people. Don't think you can handle it. Some days you up, some days you down. Talk to somebody that you trust and get help. If you're going through abuse, confide in somebody and get help. The best thing that you can do is to open your mouth and speak out against what you're going through, because that will help you start your healing process and that will help you get out of your situation. And then secondly or thirdly, what I want to say is you can get through it. Like, you're going, you're going to get through it. So stay encouraged and know that you're going to get through it. Like, where you're at right now, if you're in any of those places that we described, is not the end for you. It's not the end. It's just a season. It's just what's happening right now, but you can get through it and you can overcome it. So.
Awesome. Great advice. Really just practical steps that viewers can take today.
Yeah.
And definitely not last but not least, it seems like faith has been a major part of your journey. Can you tell us what role faith has played?
Yeah. So it took for me to so I grew up a preacher's kid. We say PK. So my father was a minister, and of course my father and mother were divorced, but my mom married a minister. And so I was a PK times two.
Wow.
Yeah. So growing up, I think I did church, but I wasn't spiritually connected with God. And so it took for me to grow up and take a serious interest myself in having a relationship with him to realize what faith was and to establish a faith walk for myself. And when I did establish that faith walk, I learned how to apply those basic principles and apply the word of God to my life in order to get me up out of a lot of the places of bitterness and hurt that I had found myself stuck in for years. And so that was my driving force as far as, getting through into forgiveness. So.
Oh, awesome. Fantastic. So Robin, how can the viewers get in contact with you?
All of my handles are 12empower, and that's ONE, the number 2, empower, MPOWER. And that is on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and at Gmail.
Awesome. Excited. Great. And I was about to say, I'm excited to be sending me your second book.
Yes.
I'm really excited to get to it.
I'm excited to hear how you feel about that one. That one's good too. It's really good.
Love it. Awesome. And where can the viewers buy your book?
My book is available on Amazon. All 3 of them are available on Amazon.
Fantastic. Certainly highly encourage the viewers to buy your book and your books and journals. They're life transforming. I can speak firsthand for one of them.
Thank you.
Gave a lot of great perspective into the men watching. Don't have those stereotypes thinking that just a romance novel or something like that. No, there's some stuff we can learn a lot. Men, women, everyone. So,
this is a true testament of don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. But thank you very much for sharing your story with us and just inspiring the viewers. We really appreciate it, Robin.
Thank you.
That was a fantastic interview with Robin. She gave us a lot of great advice and just life guidance and inspiration. Be sure to check out Robin's website, reach out to her on Instagram, social media, Facebook. Just let her know what you thought about the interview, whatever resonated with you. Also, be sure to check out our books. They're all available on Amazon. I can attest from firsthand reading it. They're really good books. She doesn't hold anything back. So be sure to purchase her books and reach out to Robin. We really appreciate her stopping by and sharing her wisdom with us. Be sure to tune in next week for another interview with one of our guest mentors. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Mentor Select podcast, helping you identify and follow your passions. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit mentorselect.com and Mentor Select on social media. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review. We'll catch you next time.